There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on a trail of the Nephilim. I'm your intrepid host coming to you from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains. Thanks so much for coming here on the trail of the Nephilim. It's a special presentation, 2-camera shoot right here in the studio. We'll get into that, but first, a word from our very trusted sponsor. Folks, gold has surged 46% in less than a year, doubling the gains of the NASDAQ and S&P 500. But this isn't just another rally. Global reserves are shifting, exposing cracks in the monetary system. Investors are losing confidence in paper gold and demanding physical metal, creating a massive gap between gold owned and gold available. But this isn't about how institutions broke another system. It's about how you can profit from it. Right now, Noble Gold Investments has a limited supply of investment-grade gold bars and coins available. As banks scramble to fulfill their obligations, pushing gold prices higher, you can profit. Smart investors are already moving into physical gold. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy for you to do the same. And right now, when you order a qualified investment, Noble Gold will add a free 1/10 of an ounce gold coin to your order. Folks, don't wait until it's too late. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. I will tell you this, folks, there is always a risk in any type of a transaction like this. But Peggy and I did it about 2 years ago, and I have to tell you, I think gold is going to go through the roof. That's conjecture on my part, but check it out. noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. Thanks so much for watching. I will save us again. We had some snafus with this tract that we made available, and there's a glaring typo on this thing, so nobody's fault, but we're going to redo them all. I think Peggy sent out about 200. Keep them to yourselves. Please don't pass them out. There's some typos and things. Anyway, we're going to fix it. So today we're going to order another 10,000. And give us about 2 weeks to get them, and we'll start shipping them out. I know that some of you gave us a donation for 20 or 30 or 50 tracks, and we will get them to you. So please be patient. We are definitely getting these redone, so everyone will be happy. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, so look at this. I remember talking to several archaeologists over the years about this. Well, and I would ask them, well, what about headlines like this? Giants' bones in mound. Scientists unearth relics of Indians who lived 700 years ago. That's New York Times. I mean, are they just trying to sell papers? And that's what they tell us. That's what the mainstream archaeologists, they're just trying to sell papers. Well, really? Come on. And I get it. There's a lot of fake news. And you go back, a couple hundred years, or July 18th and 120 years ago, whatever, a lot of, even that. And I understand that. But, the public's not that stupid, really. Okay, and people are going, wow, what's going on? And the locals, where the mounds are seeing all this. We've had stories from people. Unfortunately, this one woman was a little girl. She passed away before I could get to her about 3 or 4 years ago. So I heard the story after she had already passed away. But she was in an area in Arkansas where they went in and they created this man-made lake. And there were a series of mounds that were there. So they did like rescue archaeology, and there was a 9 or 10-foot skeleton openly on display. She saw it as a little girl. So the skeptic will go, well, she's small and she really can't tell what it is. And, there's no measuring tape there. And maybe she's just exaggerating. And there's always an excuse. But what about all these? Here's another one. Strange skeletons found. Indications that tribe hitherto unknown once lived in Wisconsin. This, of course, is Delavan. And I've been there. And this is the Phillips brothers who owned the hotel. And there were mounds on the property. And they went into the mound. You can't do that anymore. But they went into the mounds. And I actually went to the Madison Museum, or the museum in Madison, Wisconsin. And I looked at all the correspondence that went back and forth between the Phillips brothers and the head archaeologist who's in charge of all the stuff going on in Wisconsin. All that vanished in the fire. I don't have those files anymore. But let's walk through this. indications that tribe hitherto unknown once lived in Wisconsin. And we know that the Times did this because the Phillips brothers were complaining to the archaeologists, hey, somehow word got out. We didn't leak it out, but somehow word got out. And now all these people from the New York Times are showing up. What do we do? So the skeletons, the heads are much larger than the heads of any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the head slopes straight back and the nasal bones protrude far above the cheekbones. The jawbones are long and pointed, bearing a minute resemblance to the head of the monkey. The one I have in the studio here is not what they're talking about. These, and I've seen these slope straight back like this. Now, archaeologists will insist these are cranial deformation, cradle headboarding. When you take the skull of an infant and you wrap it and you bind it to wood and you shape it. I have seen some of these. There was a place that Mondo Gonzalez went up, undisclosed location, actually it was in Canada, and this woman's grandfather had a skull which was actually presented to her. And we went up and filmed it, and we Zoomed Rick Woodward, or Skyped him, whatever, and Rick took one look at it, we flipped the thing over, and the foramen magnum was where it should have been. Now, since we're on this subject, and I've talked about this a gazillion times, but I'll say it again. So this is the foramen magnum. This is the hole right here, and you can see that it's dark and the a black hole, and in the white around it, that was where the clay went to allow this dowel to be inserted. So the late Joe Taylor did that, but that's not what it looks like in real life. There'd be no hole for a dowel there. That's where your spinal column attaches to the base of the skull. So the foramen magnum is all the way in the back, all the way to the occipital plate. What are we looking at here? Should be here, should be in the center of the skull, but it's not. It's all the way pushed back. So the skull that we found up in Canada was the way it should have been, dead center of the skull, and swept back. Was that cranial deformation? Yes, it was cranial deformation. What are we looking at here? And again, I want to show you something here, and I want to thank Jeff Dunn coming on the record. Look at the eye sockets here. 25 to 30% larger than a normal human being. You can't enlarge the eye sockets through cranial deformation. In our film on the elongated skulls, we have doctors and surgeons and archaeologists, anthropologists, chiropractors. It's a multidisciplinary team, all stating on the record that these elongated skulls are something genetic. If you want to check that out, and I wish you would, you need to do your homework, but go to streaming.lamarzulli.net. It's right on the bottom of the screen there. Streaming.lamarzulli.net. Check it out. You want number 6, which is on the DNA. And it'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind. So we know that they were here. They were there. Why aren't we being told the truth? At some point, I'm going to sit down with my lawyer, Rick Town, and we're going to create a petition. And we're going to put it up on our website, and people will be able to sign the petition. And then as a legal document with all the signatures, I will present that. My lawyer will try to present it to Doge and to try to open up the gates of some of these museums. For instance, the Smithsonian. Do they have elongated skulls there? Do they have the bones of the giant? And if they do, the American people have the right to know. Why? Your taxpayer dollars are going there. Years ago, I went to a museum in Illinois, and there was this huge mural on the wall, which was basically promulgating Darwinism. It's actually in the book, On the Trail of the Nephilim. And it said, from so simple beginnings, all these complex forms. Well, that goes against the biblical prophetic narrative, the biblical prophetic paradigm, which many of us hold dear. Why is it that this paradigm is constantly thrown up in our face? Why? Taxpayer dollars are funding this thing, and it's a religion. Darwinism is a religion, absolutely. It's sacrosanct in the academic community, the scientific community, but these museums are run, some of them by donations, but many of them by taxpayer dollars. That's why we're going to create this formal letter with all your signatures, and we hope to get thousands and thousands of signatures. We want the Smithsonian opened up, all of it opened up. We want to find out what the heck is there. Let's continue. Giants in North America. This is a picture I discovered at the Catalina Island Museum, about 26 miles away from Los Angeles. I flew out there with Terry Johnson, who's a trained pilot. He actually gives flying lessons. So I'm in a two-seater with two sets of controls. And I think we were down in Whitaker where the airport is, but I don't remember exactly. And he goes, okay, this is how you taxi out. And there's two pedals on the floor. And, you know, he's running the show, but I've got the pedals and I'm taxiing down the runway. So, I mean, I'm going, you got to be kidding me. So he takes off and we're up a cruising altitude, about 3,000 feet. And he goes, okay, so here's the dials you look at. Here are your controls. And I flew the plane basically from, I don't know, once we reached cruising altitude, like 5 minutes into Catalina, he landed the plane. So then I'm at the Catalina Island Museum. I'm there. And the next day he comes up. And this time I actually took the plane off the runway. In other words, I took off in the plane. And he showed me what to do. He said, pull back on the stick. I pull back on the stick. The plane comes up. I flew around the island. And then I flew home. And then he landed it. It's just unbelievable. Do I want flying lessons? Just what I need is another hobby at 75 years old. But okay, so here I am in the Catalina Island Museum. And John Boragina goes, what do you want to see first? And I say, well, I want to see, you know, the museum boxes. I want to see where these things came from. You know, what pictures that you have. And so he goes, okay, and he goes back into the vault. And it's a walk-in vault. And he hands me these museum boxes, puts them on the table. I have my camera set up. I want to thank my former business partner who passed away a number of years ago, Richard Shaw, who gave me my first lesson and turned me into a photojournalist, something I never would have signed up for. And that became the basis for the book, On the Trail of a Nephilim. So there's two tables with white paper on them, and the museum boxes are stacked up with the pictures. I find this picture, which you're looking at, in the first hour I'm there. And I put it, the former curator of the Catalina Island Museum, John Boragina, and I said, John, look at the skeleton here. He goes, oh my gosh. And later on, we had 3 different researchers look at the skeleton, all placing it about 9 feet. So here you go. So one of our experts took the photograph and straightened Ralph up, and then took the skeleton and did the same. And you can see that it's just over 8'9" tall, but we rounded it down to 8'6". So we can see that there's a huge disparity between the height of Ralph Glidden and the skeleton. I basically call it a 9-footer because that's what I think it was. Now I'm taking a little bit liberty. I'm pushing the envelope in the other direction because that's the paradigm I believe what we're looking at. Look at the size of the skull. Is in fact a Nephilim skeleton. So there's also another picture that we found. Look at the size of the orbits on the eyes, 25% larger than a normal human being. How many fingers do you see there? Count them. Where's the thumb? Thumb's not there, is it? Thumb's not there. There are 6 fingers. It's a 6-fingered skeleton found on the island of Catalina. Also, look at the jawbone. Look at the jaw, how robust it is. This is not a normal human being, in our opinion. So when Richard Shaw and I went back to the Catalina Island Museum about 6 or 8 months after the first volume of On the Trail of a Nephilim was actually published, and we walk in and we see the picture that I discovered, and it's up on the wall. And we go, oh my gosh. And Rick and I look at each other going, you have got to be kidding me. That's Richard holding up my book, On the Trail of a Nephilim, Volume 1. Why would the museum crop the picture of the giant? Why would they do this? Why would they do this? You can plainly see that it's just Ralph Glidden standing, leaning on his shovel, and basically it's a hit piece against Ralph. Oh, he's nothing more than a grave robber and all this stuff. But yet, in modernity, you can watch Zali Hawass doing exactly the same thing, and he's a famous Egyptian archaeologist. Isn't it great? He does the same thing. He's down in some tomb someplace and taking all the artifacts and robbing a tomb and putting them in the museum. Well, that's what Ralph Glidden did. But somehow he's a bad guy, and he was lying to us. There are no giant skeletons. Why redact the picture? Why redact the picture? Why did they do this? So we talked about this a little earlier, the foramen magnum. You can see the skull on the left. That is a normal human skull. You can see where the foramen magnum is. Now, look at the skull to your far right. You see how close it is to the occipital plate? Look at the one in the middle. It should be pushed towards the jawbone, and it's not. The foramen magnum. Once again, I want to thank Rick Woodward, our team's anthropologist, one of our archaeologists on the team. And you can see there's a disparity between these. When you point that out, you don't get an answer. That's in our DNA film. It's in number 6. You want to check that film out. Streaming.lamarzulli.net. So Mondo and I go to undisclosed location up in Canada, and there he is right there, and we examined an artifact. And unfortunately, I don't have that artifact, but it was a cradle headboarded skull. But the artifact I'm going to show you here is from Peru. It's from the museum in Ica, ICA, the Ica Museum. This is the enigmatic Chongo skull. When we went down there to take DNA samples, we were not allowed to take DNA samples from the enigmatic, very elongated Chongo skull. But for the first time that we are aware of in the history of the world, we actually photographed where the foramen magnum was on this particular artifact. And you'll hear Richard Shaw, you'll see Mondo's hand. Obviously, I'm weighing in. It completely blew us away. And here you go.
Just a hand.
Really is.
What was that there?
Now she turns it over. Oh my God. So right there, you can see the foramen magnum. It is literally all the way to the back of the skull. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. You can't cradle board that. You can't use cranial deformation to do that. And once again, I want to thank a friend of our show, Brian Forrester. Back in 2013, we went down, and Brian got us in touch, and part of the reason that we were successful was because of Brian Forrester's work. Thank you, Brian. So let's continue. You can see this. The foramen magnum is all the way to the back.
That is right in the back. Work core this way. That's like right on the occipital plate. So here we are, and we are now looking at where the foramen magnum, which obviously is right there, and it's directly right next to the occipital plate, which once again, a normal human being, this foramen magnum would be in here somewhere. Rondo, do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. It's interesting too. Maybe we can get another angle. Are you ready, Rick, to change the angle?
Yeah, I'm just trying to just kind of like the organ angle, grandma, just because I want to put my finger in here. I want you to see just what the spine.
I mean, let me stop it right there. So you can see, and I'm going to roll it back just a little bit because you get a really good shot here. Right there. I mean, you can see when Rick starts to rotate it, right there is a great shot because you can see that it's almost outside the skull. And, mainstream archaeology needs to look at this, needs to look at our DNA evidence. We have new DNA evidence. So I want to thank our sponsors, our donors that contributed a boatload of money that enabled us to do this. Folks, it rewrites history. It really does. It rewrites history as we know it. And we are the only team on the planet that's ever taken DNA samples that actually looked at the Chongo skull. Now, Tim Alberino went down, that's in his film, but we were there first. We were the ones that actually broke the story. And it's all in our films, On the Trail of the Nephilim, certainly in the DNA evidence. You can see right here that occipital plate is almost, if it's any further back, it's outside the skull. So is this a remnant of the Anakim? Anakim meets long necks. When we sat down with medical doctors and chiropractors and surgeons and all this multidiscipline team, many of them said in order to balance this skull, you would have to have an elongated neck. It would necessitate a much longer neck. The Anakim, when you translate that, one of the Nephilim tribes, is called the long necks. Folks, what are we looking at here? Let's continue as Mondo continues to weigh in.
As I want to put my finger in here, I want you to see just what the spine would look like based on
Yeah, I mean, it's all around.
You just see how straight it is and how wide.
And look at the size of the orbits. Look at the eyes. They are 20 to 25% larger than a normal human beings.
Wow. That is so.
Also, look right here at the zygomatic arch. Notice how absolutely pronounced all this is. And in our film, I realize, folks, but you need to do your homework. I sat down with a surgeon. I mean, this guy's like, he's a stand-up guy. And he's putting his reputation on the line. And it's in our film, number 6, the complete DNA evidence. Streaming.lamarzulli.net, streaming.lamarzulli.net. He looks at the skull, and it's actually this skull that he's looking at, and he's talking about the zygomatic arch. And he looks right at the camera as he's holding the artifact and says, "Go to camera 2 here, John. We don't have features like this." And we don't. We don't have features like this. We are looking at something that is genetic. Now, I will be down at the Prophecy Watchers Conference at the end of March. Here's the kicker. We have an artifact from Bolivia that we have in our possession, and it was donated to our ministry. And we have done DNA testing on it, and the results are absolutely astounding. And we are working with a world-class geneticist, and I hope to do an interview with him, which I will show down at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. But I will tell you this, what we have discovered is absolutely astounding. And I will be breaking this news for the first time down at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. So here we go.
Your role of the school is found right here.
Yeah,
And then you're
very, very large. And it also makes us wonder about the cranial capacity. I mean, this is so large in here that with this particular entity have more brain power than a normal human being.
So in our film, The Secret Cosmic War, Watchers 6, again, you can buy the hard copy DVD. I know I'm always pushing this stuff, but I only have so much time. And Richard Shaw and I went down to Peru. Brian Forrester's there. We're weighing the skull. We're pouring rice into the skulls. Judd Burton, our first archaeologist, is there with us. And we're looking at, oh my gosh, the cranial capacity is 20 to 25% larger than a normal human being. So you can cradle headboard an infant, but you can't create a larger skull with a larger brain. You can't do that. And this is a smoking gun. And this was the first person who discovered that was Brian Forrester. Brian was the one that put that on the map, and then we carried the torch a little further along. Let's continue.
And of course, we don't have answers to that.
Wow. And I got to tell you, folks, it's just when the Lord opens up doors, He opens up doors. So let me just go to this next one, and we're going to end here, and I'll pick it up with part 5, I think it is, in a little bit. Really cool. I really enjoy doing this. Just a couple of announcements real quick. This right here, and I want to thank Chuck Sikowski. I'm going to push way in so you guys can see it. And you can see, let me just turn this over here. You can see that there's something in that little vial. See it? It's moving. Sorry, John. There you go. I want to thank our friend and fellow researcher Chuck Sikowski. He gave me this piece. This is from the Roswell debris field. And in our film on Roswell, we actually go to the debris field with two metal detectors, Frank Kimmler and Chuck Sikowski. And Frank dug out the metal, and it's right here in the palm of my hand. And now we have a new piece of metal, and we will be going to a laboratory in the Los Angeles area, and we will be putting this under a scanning electron microscope. And I will be talking about this at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. Folks, there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. Don't forget, you can go to our website, rungsofdisclosure.com. The book, DVDs, all sorts of information are there. Run to Disclosure is an interactive website, so as we get a new rung, UFO material, it's all there. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again real soon. Remember, folks, click the like and subscribe if you haven't, and thank you for coming here every day. We'll see you again real soon.